Now we're going to be solving some inequalities as kind of the go-to for this. Before we need to do that, there's some. It's like solving an equation. You've seen a lot of these directions when you had to find what number the x equaled. But this time you're going to see inequalities. You're going to see greater than signs. You're going to see less than signs. You might see greater than or equal to. You might see less than or equal to, but you're not going to see just a plain old equals. So that means there's not going to be just one number that x equals. There's going to be a number where the x starts, and then it's either greater than that number goes or less than that number, and we communicate that answer with a number line. That's kind of here. 4 and 7 are kind of the steps that you need to focus on, because other than that, it's like solving an equation. But there's something on step 4 that you have to run through this thing here with me to see that it makes sense. Okay, we know that 6 is greater than 4. Okay, the sign should open up towards a bigger number, or it looks like a nose. The nose points towards a smaller number. I like to say it opens towards a bigger number. So let's just, for craps and giggles, add 2 to both sides. So that'd be 8 and that'd be 6. Now 8's still bigger, so the sign doesn't change. So did anything change? No. Okay, subtract 2 from both sides. Go back up here so we end up with 4 and 2. 4 is bigger. Okay. And did anything change? No. So when we add or subtract, the sign really doesn't change. Okay, so we can forget that. Now divide both these by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. And did anything change? No. So you're like, oh, so it doesn't change when you divide. Well, not necessarily. I was dividing both sides by a positive number, so it didn't change. Divide by negative here, and we'll see what happens. Now multiply both sides by 2, so that'd be 12 and 8. 12 is bigger. Okay, did anything change? Nope. Divide both of them by negative 2, so they're going to get a negative 3 and a negative 2, but this time now negative 2 is bigger, so the sign has to open up towards negative 2. So did it change? Yes. Okay. Multiply both sides by negative 2. So negative 12, negative 8. Well, negative 8 is bigger than negative 12. Okay? Just think of it. No, if you think about a number line, negative 8 is further to the right than negative 12 is. So there's my bigger number. Did anything change? Yes. So conclusions, when does it change? Well, if you divide or multiply by a negative. Okay? So divide, multiply by negative, because we're going to be switching the sign on some problems but not others, and that's got to make sense to you. Okay, all right. Now solve the inequality. First thing we should do when we're solving, we don't just write x equals. What we need to do is make a number line with 0 in the middle. You don't need to make all the numbers just 0. I want to see the 0 in the middle. Okay, and you can make the arrows. It's not really that important that you do that, but know where your variables are and what the coefficients are. So there's x, coefficient of 3. Are there any parentheses? Nope, so you don't have to do the distributive property rainbows. Do you have multiples of the same variable? Nope, I just have the 3x, so let's ignore that. Circle your variable term. So 3x, circle that. Kind of like, yeah, we did the boxing. I've kind of gotten away from that. Okay, now, decision time. Is there a negative in that circle? No, there's not. So that sign is going to be the same. Okay. All right, undo, adding, or subtracting. Well, I don't have any adding or subtracting to undo, because remember, this kind of acts as the equal sign, so I don't need to do that. Multiply or divide. Well, I don't need to multiply because I don't have a fraction as my coefficient. And I just divide both sides by 3. And those cancel. And after we divide or multiply, what we're going to do is transfer the work over here. On this side I have x, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. Okay, so 6 is what's known as our critical value. We circle it. Now we're not going to fill the circle in because there's no line underneath. There's not the equals to bar. And the nose kind of points this way, so therefore all the solutions go that way. So x could be 6, starts at 6, and it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For example, in the original problem, I mean, if I had fours in this would be part of this. I mean, 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 is less than 18. So it's just a test. Okay, the next one, same idea. I like to make my number line to start with. It's not just x equals, it's going to be the number line. Know where your variables are at, x, and what the coefficient is. Looks like it's -8. Distributive property, don't need it. Are there multiple of the same variable? Nope, there's just the -8x. Circle variable term. And this time, is there a negative in that circle? Yup. So, switch that sign, and we still want to include the bar under it, but we need to switch it. Now we proceed with the math, and we'll be putting our answer here. Okay, undo adding or subtracting. That's not something we need to do here, because that's the only thing I have on this side of that. Okay. Multiply or divide. Well, we don't need to multiply because it's not a fraction. We just need to divide both sides by -8, and those will cancel, giving me x by itself. So I have x. Now put your work down here. And 16 divided by -8 is -2. Okay. So -2 is a critical number. Circle it. The bar is there, so we want to fill that in. And we want to go to the right. Okay. All right, now my next problem. Know where your variable is at, what the coefficient is. So x is a variable, coefficient is actually -5. I'm going to make that plus negative. Some people miss that. Okay, it's negative. Distributive property is not needed. If you have a multiple of the same variable, note that's the only one I have. Circle variable term, -5x. Now is there a negative in that circle? Yup. So that sign needs to switch. Okay. Now, do you have to undo any adding or subtracting? Yes, we have to undo this +4 here. So I'm going to subtract 4. Subtract 4. Now, you don't want to go down here yet. You go down here after you divide. Okay, and I'm going to make that note here. I'm going to make a note after dividing, transfer work under the number line. But that's after dividing. We haven't divided yet. Okay, so I want to keep on working here. So -5x, sine. 14 minus 4 is 10. Okay, now multiply or divide. Well, we don't have to multiply. There's no fraction. Just divide both sides of the equation by -5, because that means -5 times x. The opposite of times is to divide by that same number. And also, don't switch the sign. You don't switch that to +5, not on dividing. You keep the same sign. So I have x, and 10 divided by -5 is -2. Okay, so -2 is our critical number. Circle. The bar's there, so we're going to fill that in, and the nose goes that way. Okay, next problem. Again, if we see a greater than or less than, to find the solution, we're going to need to represent that with a number line. Know where your variables are at and what the coefficients are. So we have just that x variable there with the 2. That works. Now we are going to have to use the distributive property rainbows because there's a parenthesis. So -3 to 2x, -3 to 5. Remember, let's make that plus negative, okay? Look at that fat cat right there, man. Look at how fat and chut, yeah, you. That's my parents' cat. My parents are on vacation, so I have to take care of their house. I got to water their garden, so doing this from home. Okay, that's not my cat, by the way. I'm not a big cat person. Okay. So -3 times 2x would be -6x. And remember, with the minus sign, we want to make that plus negative. So we know we're taking -3 times -5, and that's +15. Okay, let's cross that out. Let's add the 1. And then 4. Okay. Okay, do we have multiples of the same variable? Nope, just the -6x, so that's not a problem. But one thing that might be a problem, we need to add the 16 and the 1, and that's 15 and 1, and that's 16, okay? All right, now, just a little step to do along the way. Circle your variable term. They're negative in that? Sure. So that sign goes the other way. It goes from greater than to less than. Okay? Okay, so undo the adding or subtracting. We have a 16 we have to undo. It's positive, so we're going to minus it. And remember, don't go over here yet. You go over here after this step, not after this, okay? Because when you add or subtract, the sign doesn't change. The sign doesn't change until the division, if it needs to be changed, or the multiplication. So I have negative 6x, and 4 minus 16 is negative 12. So I'll be dividing by negative 6 then. And after we divide, we want to transfer the work over here where the sign's been switched. So I have x. Negative 12 divided by negative 6 is 2. And again, we have 2 as a critical number. Circle it, fill it in. Equals 2 signs there, and there we go. Okay, next problem. Know where your variable's at? Know that here's x, it's 1, but the coefficient's not just 1, it's 1/5. Okay. Distributive property will not be needed. Do you have multiple of the same variable? No, that's the only x I have. Circular variable term, so I'm going to circle this whole fraction. Is there a negative anywhere in there? Nope, so the sign stays the same. Okay, is there any adding or subtracting you have to undo? Nope. Okay. So we're going to multiply or divide. We have a fraction here, so we are going to have to multiply here. So times 5. So I have 1x. I'm going to put that sign there. Then 20. Now, do I really have to divide by 1? No, not if it's 1. Okay, so I have x and 20. Circle it. And that's a greater than sign, so it goes this way. Now again, a lot of people are asking, why does it matter if there's a negative in the circle? Because those are the numbers you have to multiply and divide by. Remember, you have to multiply or divide by negatives. The sign switches from that first page. Okay, so number line. Here's a variable. It'd have a 1, but it's actually negative 1/3 would be the coefficient. We just call it we just think of the negative being in front of the whole thing. Distributive properties not needed. If you have multiple variables, nope, that's the only one I have. Circular variable term, if there's a negative in that circle, you must switch the sign. So we want to circle that whole fraction, and it looks to me like there's a negative in here, man. Okay. So we better switch that sign. Undo adding or subtracting. Nope, you don't have to. Multiply or divide. Okay, yep, we're going to need to multiply. So we multiply by negative 3 over here. Okay, so I have 1x, and I'm actually not going to put the sign. I'm just going to put negative 48 because we don't need to divide. Okay, because it's a 1. So transfer your answer down here, and we have x and negative 48. The sign switched when we multiplied by a negative, because I'm multiplying this side by negative 3 to undo it. I don't really do the dot negative 3, dot negative 3. That confuses people. Okay, just take that number, multiply, because we're multiplying this side by it to get rid of it, and then multiplying the other side. It's not probably how it should be taught. I just find it easier for students to do it that way. Remember, if there's a negative in that circle, you're switching the sign at the right here. All right, here's the next one. Negative 6 is less than 4x plus 6 is less than 26. So now you see that there's two inequalities. And what that means is that instead of just going one direction, there's two numbers that are going to be on here, and the solutions are anything in between. Okay, we had problems like that in Algebra 1. Might not remember them. Okay, so know where your variables are and what the coefficients are. So I have 4x as my variable, okay? And the coefficient's 4. Distributive property is not going to be an issue here. Do you have multiple variables? Nope, that's the only one I have. Circle your variable term, and if there's a negative in that circle, you switch the signs. So I circle that. Well, there's no negative, so the signs, both of them, will stay the same. And when there's two signs, what we want at the end is the x in the middle by itself. Okay? Nothing with it. Now, undo the adding or subtracting. So you're like, well, where do I look for that? You cover these numbers up and look at just the expression in the middle. And it looks like we have a plus 6. We need to minus 6 to get rid of it. And you need to minus 6 from the negative 6 and the 26. It's like 3 sides. With 2 signs, it's like 3 sides. So minus 6, minus 6. Okay. So negative 6 minus 6 is negative 12. Or no, I'm not ready to go here yet. I'm sorry I screwed you up. Okay, I'm sorry. So it's negative 12 sine 4x sine 20. I know I'm not ready to go here because I haven't yet divided. I was undoing the adding or subtracting. Now multiply or divide. Well, there's no fraction. We don't need to multiply. We're going to divide by 4. And we divide all three. There's 3 things we have to divide by 4. The middle to cancel, the negative 12, and the 20. Okay, so that gives me negative 3. That gives me x in the middle, which I already have, and 20 divided by 4 is 5. Okay, and those are the 2 numbers, so negative 3 and 5. Circle. We're not going to fill in either one because they're not the bar equals to. And we just connect. Okay, and then the last one. I'm going to do the last one. There's graphs in this, but I'm going to do that on another video. Your assignment on this video is just these 4, and also here's this one. I'm going to come back and do that last example, but I want you to change this problem real quick. I want you to put 24x on that side. And then negative 12. You just flip-flop those two because you want the x variable, if there's only one of them, to be on the left side. So when you get your answer, you know what direction it goes. Okay, and then we'll switch the sign. Okay, and then you go from there. That's how to deal with that little problem. All right, but I want to go here. So number line, follow your plan. Know where your variables are at. There's x with negative 2. Distributive property is not an issue. If you have multiple of the same variable, nope, that's the only one we got right there. Now circle your variable term. Do you have a negative in there? Yup, so there's 2 signs that need to be flipped. That goes from less than to greater than, and so does that one. And we want x in the middle. Okay, that's the goal. Okay, so in the middle we have a plus 7. You don't undo these. You shouldn't even be looking at the outside. You have a plus 7 to undo, so I minus 7. And then I need to minus 7 from 3 and 21, because these are on different, these are all 3 sides, left, middle, right. So if I have a plus 7, middle undoes it, left, right. So 3 minus 7 is negative 4. Got my sign. Negative 2x, got my sign, and then 14. Okay, we don't need to multiply. There's no fraction. I'm going to put if fraction. Okay, so we have to divide. Okay, so we want to divide the middle by negative 2, and then we need to divide this by negative 2 and this by negative 2. What you do in the middle, you got to do left and right. Okay, so negative 4 divided by negative 2 gives me a 2 quotient, and then I have x in the middle, just like I had anticipated, and then negative 7. Okay, so those are your 2 critical numbers, 2 and negative 7. Circle both of them, and fill them in. Fill them in because there's an equals bar, okay? All right, now you can go ahead and do these problems here. Hopefully you've made that change already. Remember, this one you're going to have the 2 numbers you have to find because there's 2 signs right there.